Welcome back to Football Daily, where today we count down 10 footballers who put their lives on the line for the game. 10. John Terry. Regardless of your disgust at John Terry's general character, there's no denying he was an absolute warrior on the field. And the man who led Chelsea from the back for over a decade never let anything get in the way of him and a place in the starting lineup. Throughout his career, the English centre-half would take special pain-killing injections in order to play when he would otherwise have been deemed injured. And he later claimed that during the 2014-15 title-winning campaign, he received them twice a day for his broken toe. Such was Jose Mourinho's desperation for him to play. But despite the obvious and quite serious health risks involved, Terry said he would do it all again because of his love for the club. And it wasn't the only time he put himself on the line. During the 2007 League Cup final, he took Abu Dhabi's boots to the face as he tried to connect with a corner. It left him unconscious and struggling for air, and he was rushed to hospital. 9. Daniel Agger. Daniel Agger made a name for himself as both a tough and skillful centre-half, but unfortunately his career was hampered by injury. However, like John Terry, Agger was always desperate to play, and so took anti-inflammatory drugs to relieve pain throughout his time as a footballer. But it eventually caught up with him. After moving back to boyhood club Brøndby from Liverpool in 2014, Agger was taken off injured 29 minutes into a match with Copenhagen, and subsequently collapsed in the changing room. It was later concluded that Agger had actually overdosed, but despite this he continued to play on for a full 15 months. However, in 2016, at the age of just 32, the Dane decided to call it a day. 8. Ivan Klasnic. In 2001, 21-year-old Croatian striker Ivan Klasnic's footballing career was beginning to take off. He had just helped German side St. Pauli gain promotion to the Bundesliga and subsequently secured a move to relative giants Werder Bremen, where he lifted the title in 2004. But his time with De Groenewegen also nearly killed him. In 2005, following a thrilling 4-3 win over Udinese in the Champions League, Klasnic's celebrations were cut short as pains in his stomach forced him to go to hospital. Once there, it turned out that his kidneys were failing and he would need a transplant. Amazingly, this hadn't been spotted by his club doctors in Bremen. Klasnic could have gone on a 5-year waiting list, which would have ended his career there and then. But luckily his mother offered one of her kidneys immediately. But against all odds, the transplant didn't work, and he had to have a second one, this time from his dad. After 13 grueling months, Klasnic finally made his comeback in a match against old club St. Pauli, and after being selected for Euro 2008, became the first ever footballer to play in a major international tournament following a kidney transplant. 7. Saúl Ñíguez. Another player who had major trouble with his kidneys, Saúl Ñíguez sustained his horrific injury on the field. While playing for his beloved Atletico Madrid against Bayer Leverkusen in 2015, the Spanish prodigy took a boot to the stomach from Kyriakos Papadopoulos, leaving him in agony on the floor and struggling to breathe. He was then taken to hospital, where it was found he had suffered kidney trauma and internal bleeding. Ouch. Somehow, Ñíguez was only out of action for 39 days, and after his speedy recovery, returned to play regularly for the Rocky Blancos. But it came at a massive cost. For 2 years, the kidney problem continued, which meant he urinated blood after every single match and training session. Ñíguez later said, "I was risking my health to put on the club colours and to chase the dream." 6. Styles, Peters and Wilson. Back to the 1960s now, and a time when football was undoubtedly a more dangerous game than it is today. Before the development of sports science and clubs actually caring for their players' health, footballs were made of actual leather and absorbed water. This meant they became incredibly heavy in wet conditions, not ideal at all if you're plying your trade in England. And during this time, Nobby Stiles, Martin Peters and Ray Wilson all did. Little did they know, but they were putting their lives at risk by doing so. Heroes of England's 1966 World Cup triumph, they have sadly been dealt a very poor deal since. Among many others, Stiles, Peters and Wilson have been diagnosed with dementia in their old age, and research carried out after the death of Jeff Assel, who was known for his aerial ability, has pointed the finger at the old leather balls as the perpetrators. Brain damage from heading the ball has sadly held tragic consequences for players from this era. 5. Bert Trautmann. Back in 1948, German goalkeeper Bert Trautmann signed for St Helens Town in northwest England. Not the best location you wouldn't have thought for a man who just years earlier had served as a paratrooper for the Nazis. But clearly a thick-skinned man, Bert Franklin shook off the initial abuse he received and forged a 16-year career in the English game, eventually moving to Manchester City, where he made 508 league appearances. That's more than Steven Gerrard managed at Liverpool. While in Manchester, Trautmann suffered an injury that would have ended most players' careers. During the 1956 FA Cup final, the stopper was knocked unconscious with 17 minutes to go, but once he woke up, ignored his captain's orders and insisted on playing on, helping the citizens hold on to their 3-1 lead. 3 days later, he had an X-ray, and it turned out he had been playing with a broken neck. The heroic keeper won the Football Writers' Player of the Year award that same year, and went on to play another 8 seasons with the club. 4. Borussia Dortmund. In April 2017, Borussia Dortmund welcomed Monaco for the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final, but they unknowingly put their lives at great danger in the build-up. On the way to the stadium, Dortmund's team bus carrying the entire playing and coaching staff was hit by a roadside bomb. Luckily, everyone got out alive, and the biggest damage was to the bus windows and Mark Bartra's wrist. But in ridiculous scenes, the game was postponed for the following evening, and Die Borussen had to play their biggest match of the season, still shell-shocked from the night before. Unsurprisingly, they lost 3-2, and Nuri Sahin claimed he couldn't focus on the match until the second half. Meanwhile, Thomas Tuchel claimed the team had been completely ignored by the authorities. 3. Nosserina. In November 2013, a match took place between Italian rivals Salernitana and Nosserina, and it was subsequently dubbed the Derby of Shame by the country's media. But there were no handbags on the pitch, and the managers shook hands before the game. However, the game was destined for controversy before it had even started. The day before, 200 Nosserina ultras turned up at their club's training ground after being told they were banned from travelling to the game, and threatened to kill the players unless they refused to play. Understandably, this left the players reluctant to partake in the derby, and despite being forced by the club to take the field, what happened next was utterly farcical. All 3 Nosserino subs were used within the first 15 minutes, and 5 players then feigned injuries, were brought off the pitch, and the match had to be abandoned. The idiotic fans must have been content with their dirty work, and Nosserina continued to play in front of them for the rest of the season. But the club were then prosecuted for match fraud, were fined €10,000 and were relegated to Serie D. The players came out alive, and the ultras got what they deserved in the end. 2. Neil Lennon. Sectarian hatred and violence has always marred the rivalry between Scotland's 2 biggest clubs, and former Celtic captain and manager Neil Lennon came face to face with it all too often. In fact, it's a minor miracle he's still alive. Lennon joined the boys as a player in 2000, and 2 years later received death threats from a group of loyalist Northern Ireland fans saying they would kill him on the pitch, which eventually forced him to quit the national side. In 2004, he became the victim of someone's road rage in the middle of the motorway, and in 2008, he was beaten unconscious by 2 thugs as he left a pub. This was just when he was a player. After taking up the manager's post at Celtic Park in 2010, Lennon received more death threats, including a package containing bullets, and during a 2011 meeting with Hearts, was actually assaulted by a fan at the side of the pitch. Fair play to Lennon though, he never backed down and remains a manager in Scotland to this day with Hibs. 1. Ronaldo. We all know about the controversy surrounding Ronaldo's inclusion in the Brazil team for the 1998 World Cup final. He was nowhere near fit, could it have been orchestrated by Nike, etc, etc, etc. But what is not common knowledge is that it actually could have killed him. The morning of the showpiece match against France, Brazil's golden boy collapsed in his hotel room, was taken to hospital, and on his return was deemed ready to play, having been given medication for what was thought to have been an epileptic fit. But 14 years later, Inter Milan's club doctor Bruno Caru found information that suggested that Ronaldo had not actually had a fit, and in fact had suffered a, quote, cardiac incident which could have resulted in death. Caru claimed that Ronaldo had therefore not been given the right medication, and had he been playing today, would have never been allowed anywhere near the pitch. Brazil may have lost the final that day, but they could have also lost one of their greatest ever players forever.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. As usual, let us know what you thought in the comments below. And if you liked that, why not check out the video that's on screen right now? Click it, it's a good one. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.